effectively saying what is the impact of a per unit change in sales on profitability of the firm, and what is the impact. So what is the impact on operating profitability and what is the impact on net profitability? So there are two parameters that come into this. Parameter 1 talks about in detail about operating leverage, which is talking about fixed costs of the firm, fixed operating costs of the firm. Parameter 2 will start talking in addition to this about the fixed operating cost plus the financial costs, fixed financial costs of the firm that will come in. Degree of operating leverage is effectively the percentage change in operating profits on a percentage change in sales volume. It is given by this formula. So effectively you will find Q into P minus V, where Q is the quantity sold, P is the price per unit, V is the variable cost per unit, F is the total fixed cost effectively. So this is what we are looking at. In the numerator you find effectively what is the contribution. So P minus V, which is sales price minus variable cost, will give you the contribution per unit. Effectively, when you multiply this with the quantity, that gives you effectively what is the change in operating profit, because fixed costs don't change. On the denominator, you subtract fixed costs as well with the same change in profitability effectively. Note that if a firm has bigger fixed costs, the denominator will be lower, which means degree of operating leverage will be higher. Degree of financial leverage is percentage change in net income with percentage change in operating income. So we'll understand this very quickly with an example that should clear things out. How do you calculate it? Now this is the percentage change in operating income. This is the percentage change in effectively, the final net income. We include this C, which is the financial cost, fixed financial cost that comes into the picture. So now we will calculate this and understand this using an Excel file. So let's quickly go to our Excel file. One sec. So we go to our Excel file and go to the leverage stock, leverage data. Let's to begin with hide this cell because we are good enough looking at one, and then if you want we can practice the other one as well. We have a firm A which sells 1 million units at a price of 30 per unit. Their variable cost is 15 per unit. Fixed operating costs are 5 million. Fixed financing costs are 2.5 million effectively, correct? The contribution is given by what is the value you make by selling the next unit. So fixed costs are fixed. So effectively if you sell the next unit, you make 30 minus 15, which is 15, correct? I have created the P&L for this firm. So by selling 1 million units, they get 30 million in sales, 15 million in variable cost, which gives their gross profit as 15 million. 5 million is the fixed operating cost, 5 million is the fixed financing cost. Operating profit is gross profit minus fixed operating cost, which is 10 million. And 10 million minus 2.5 million will give me the final net profit. So effectively, there are two ways of dealing with this. One is I can directly find out what is my operating profit, as a proportion of the gross profit. Gross profit as a proportion of the operating profit. So what I'm looking at is gross profit divided by operating profit. That will give me the operating leverage. And operating profit divided by the final profit will give me the financial leverage. What does this mean? We will discuss this in a moment. We can also calculate this based on the discussion we had, which is operating leverage can be calculated by the formula. Let's put a bracket, quantity multiplied by the contribution divided by quantity multiplied by the contribution minus the fixed operating cost. We still get 1.5, correct? Similarly, financial leverage can be calculated by the denominator of the previous term, which is quantity multiplied by the contribution minus the fixed cost, operating cost remember, divided by the same numbers, quantity multiplied by the contribution minus the fixed cost, minus all the fixed cost basically. So D7 and D8, both of these will come 1.33, same as what we had calculated. What does this mean now? This effectively means that if there is a 10% change in the number of units sold in sales, you will have a 15% change in the operating profits. So let's just do one thing. Let's just copy this somewhere and paste it. So once we have pasted this here, we will get a sense of what kind of numbers will come in. Now I will change this by 10%, which means it becomes 1.1 million. Correct? The moment I change sales by 10%, correct, you will note that your operating profit has changed by 15%. And when your operating profit changed by 15%, 15% multiplied by, if you remember, 1.33 was our financial leverage, 1.3333, 20% is the change in your final profit, correct? Now that's how the operating leverage and financial leverage would be calculated. If you want to effectively go back to the initial discussion, this is the initial point. The degree of total leverage of the firm is calculated by multiplying 1.5 with 1.33. Just multiply the degree of operating leverage with the degree of financial leverage and you get the degree of total leverage, which is this. Once you have the degree of total leverage, you realized in our example that when you increase sales by 10%, your profits increased by 20%. That shows that what is the variability of profits as compared to sales. As the sales keep increasing, you will note, as the sales keep increasing, you will note that both the numbers will keep going down. So these are some of the relationships that you may want to play around with. That's largely your degree of operating